Hey there, it's me Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the description.
So today's story called The Christmas Wish, written by Martha. Thanks Martha for this beautiful story. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're the only person left in the world, even when you know you're not. It was the sort of silence that begged to be broken, the kind that made your heart beat just a little faster, like something was about to happen. And for Martin, something was about to happen. He stood at the foot of the stairs, listening. His parents had left an hour ago, their voices still echoing in his mind, his mother's gentle reminders about chores, his father's deep chuckle as he promised they wouldn't be out too late. Brenda, his older sister, was gone too, off at a friend's house for the night. That left only him and Michelle, the babysitter. Michelle had arrived right on time, her usual burst of energy filling the house for a few minutes before she got lost in her own little world, talking on the phone, flipping through magazines, painting her nails. She was the perfect babysitter, not because she was attentive, but because she wasn't. She didn't hover. She didn't check in every 5 minutes. And most importantly, she didn't ask questions. Martin had been waiting for this moment all day. He knew exactly how long it took Michelle to settle in. He knew that once she did, she wouldn't pay attention to anything else unless the house caught fire. That gave him time. He turned and walked carefully up the stairs, his socks making no sound against the carpet. His heart pounded, not from fear, but from something else. Something deeper. Something he couldn't quite name. When he reached the top of the stairs, he hesitated for only a second before pushing open Brenda's bedroom door. The room smelled like her sweet, like vanilla lotion and the faintest trace of perfume. The closet door was slightly ajar, an invitation. Martin's fingers trembled as he reached for the handle, pulling the door open just enough to step inside. The clothes hung neatly, skirts and dresses arranged in a way that he had memorized. He had been in here before, but it never felt any less exhilarating. He ran his fingers over the soft fabrics, his mind racing with possibilities. Tonight, he wanted more. He moved quickly, his hands expertly picking through the closet. A pink dress caught his eye, frilly, delicate, the kind of thing a princess might wear. He pulled it from the hanger, holding it up to himself in the mirror. His reflection stared back, wide-eyed, breathless. Slowly, carefully, he changed. He slid out of his t-shirt, pulling the dress over his head. The fabric was smooth against his skin, the fit snug in a way that made his heart flutter. He reached behind him, fumbling with the zipper, struggling until he finally got it up. Then he turned to the mirror. The sight stole his breath away. The dress fit better than he had imagined, hugging him in ways that felt right, that made sense in a way nothing else did. He smoothed his hands over the fabric, feeling the way it moved with him. Then, without thinking, he spun, just once, just enough to feel the skirt flare out around his legs. A giggle escaped his lips before he could stop it. Then came the knock. Sharp. Sudden. Right outside the door. Martin's blood turned to ice. Martin. Michelle's voice. He froze, his mind racing. Had he been too loud? Had she seen the light under the door? The knob turned. Panic gripped him as he tried to move, to do something, but before he could, the door swung open. And there stood Michelle. For a moment, everything was still. Then, she smiled. Oh my gosh, she breathed, her eyes lighting up. Well, don't you look adorable? Martin's heart pounded in his ears. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Michelle stepped inside, closing the door behind her. You know, she said, tilting her head, I think you were meant to be a girl. The words sent a jolt through him. Michelle walked over, her gaze soft, curious. Have you ever had your nails painted? She asked, reaching into her purse. Because I think pink would look perfect on you. Martin swallowed hard, his pulse roaring in his ears. He should have been terrified. But he wasn't. Not at all. Martin sat frozen, his hands gripping the fabric of the dress as Michelle stepped closer. The air between them felt electric, charged with something he couldn't quite name. Her eyes scanned him, not with judgment, but with something else. Something almost playful. "You know," she said, tapping her chin, "I always thought you were a little too sweet to be just another rough-and-tumble boy. And now look at you." He opened his mouth, his mind scrambling for an excuse, a lie, anything. But nothing came. Michelle reached into her purse and pulled out a small bottle of nail polish. "Pink," she said, wiggling the bottle between her fingers. "It's a classic." Martin's heart pounded. This was wrong. He should have been begging her not to tell, pleading with her to forget what she saw. But the words never left his lips. Instead, he found himself watching as she unscrewed the cap, the tiny brush glistening with polish. "Come on," she coaxed, sitting on the bed and patting the space beside her. "I won't tell. I promise." He hesitated, but something about her voice, calm, steady, knowing, made him step forward. He sat down beside her, hands still trembling. Michelle reached for his left hand, studying it between her fingers. "You have such delicate hands," she murmured, carefully painting the first nail. Martin watched, mesmerized. Stroke by stroke, his nails transformed. He had always wondered what this would feel like, to have someone do this for him, to be seen in this way. And now, under the soft glow of his sister's bedroom lamp, he was living it. "There," Michelle said, blowing gently on his fingers. "Now we just let them dry." Martin stared at his nails, something shifting deep inside him. He had expected to feel guilty, ashamed. But instead, he felt warm, whole. Michelle leaned in. "You know, if you want," she said, her voice light, teasing, "I could show you a few more things. How to walk, how to sit, all the little details." His stomach flipped. "You'd do that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Of course," she said. "But first." She reached into her purse again, pulling out a small, silver tube. "Lip gloss." Martin breathed. Michelle grinned. "Every girl needs a little shine." He hesitated, then nodded. And as she swiped the gloss over his lips, something inside him clicked into place. He wasn't just playing dress up. He was discovering something real. Something he wasn't sure he'd ever be able to let go of. The lip gloss felt strange at first, smooth, slightly sticky, a faint scent of strawberries lingering in the air. Martin smacked his lips together, feeling the unfamiliar texture settle over them. He looked up at Michelle, unsure of what to say, but she only smiled, tilting her head as if she were admiring her own masterpiece. "There," she said, tucking the gloss back into her purse. "Now you look perfect." Perfect. Martin's stomach twisted at the word. He had always imagined what it would feel like to wear his sister's clothes, to see himself in the mirror dressed like this. But this was different. This wasn't just slipping into a dress in secret, hurrying to change back before anyone could find out. This was someone else seeing him like this, acknowledging it, approving of it. And it didn't feel wrong. It felt right. Michelle nudged him lightly with her elbow. "You're quiet," she said. "What's going on in that pretty little head of yours?" Martin swallowed. I don't know." "Sure you do," she said, crossing her legs. "You've thought about this before, haven't you?" He turned away, staring down at his hands. His nails, now soft pink, rested against the folds of his dress. He felt exposed, vulnerable. But at the same time, he didn't want to hide. "I guess," he admitted. Michelle nodded as if she already knew. "I thought so," she said. "I could tell the moment I saw you in that dress. You weren't just trying it on. You were being something." Martin's breath hitched. I don't know what that means," he whispered. Michelle smirked. "Sure you do." She stood up, stretching before reaching out a hand. "Come on," she said. "Let's see if you can walk the walk." Martin hesitated, then placed his hand in hers. She pulled him to his feet, then took a step back, crossing her arms. "All right, princess," she teased. "Let's see your best runway walk." Martin let out a nervous laugh. "I don't." "Should," she said, placing a finger against his lips. "Don't think. Just do." He took a breath, then another, and then he walked. At first, it was clumsy, his steps awkward, unsure. The dress felt different around his legs, the weight of it unfamiliar. But as he moved, Michelle guided him, correcting his posture, adjusting his stance. Chin up, she instructed. Shoulders back. Smaller steps. Glide, don't stomp. Little by little, he started to feel it. The shift. The change. It wasn't just about the dress, or the makeup, or the nail polish. It was about how he felt inside. By the time he reached the other side of the room, something in his chest swelled. Michelle clapped. See, she said. I knew you had it in you. Martin turned, his heart racing, his lips curving into a small smile. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel like he was pretending. He felt like he was becoming. Martin could still feel the warmth of Michelle's praise lingering in the air. His heart pounded, not from fear, not from embarrassment, but from something else entirely. Excitement. He had never felt this way before. It was as if a door had been unlocked inside him, one he had always known was there, but never dared to open. Michelle was watching him closely, a smirk tugging at her lips. You know, she said, twirling the nail polish bottle between her fingers, I think you've got more potential than you realize. Martin shifted from foot to foot, the soft fabric of the dress brushing against his legs. Potential for what? For being you, she said simply. The words hit him in a way he didn't expect. He looked down at himself again, the pink polish on his nails, the dress that felt like it belonged on him, the gloss that still tingled on his lips. It should have felt wrong. He should have wanted to change back, to bury this moment deep inside and pretend it never happened. But he didn't. Michelle plopped back down on the bed, crossing her legs. So tell me, she said, how long have you been sneaking into your sister's room? Martin's face burned hot. He opened his mouth to protest, but Michelle raised an eyebrow as if to say, don't even try it. A while, he admitted. She nodded knowingly. Thought so. He hesitated. Are you mad? Why would I be mad? She asked, looking genuinely confused. Because it's weird? Michelle rolled her eyes. Please. You think you're the only boy in the world who's ever tried on a dress. Martin's stomach flipped at her words. Look, she continued, I don't know what this means for you. Maybe it's just curiosity. Maybe it's something more. But you don't have to figure all of that out tonight. Right now, we're just having fun. Fun. That was the word for it, wasn't it? This wasn't some deep, life-altering moment. It was just a game. A game with nail polish and lip gloss and a dress that felt a little too perfect. And yet, it was something more. Michelle leaned forward, her eyes bright with mischief. You know what we need? Martin gulped. What? She grinned. Accessories. Before he could respond, Michelle was already on her feet, heading toward Brenda's jewelry box. Martin watched, his stomach fluttering with nervous anticipation as she flipped open the lid and began digging through the necklaces and bracelets. Oh, she cooed, holding up a delicate silver chain. This is nice. Martin felt his breath hitch as she stepped toward him, the necklace dangling between her fingers. May I? She asked. He swallowed and nodded. She moved behind him, reaching around to clasp the necklace at the back of his neck. He felt the cool metal settle against his collarbone, the slight weight of it sending another jolt through him. There we go, she murmured. Now you really look the part. Martin turned back to the mirror, taking in his reflection. It was surreal. The small changes, the lip gloss, the nail polish, the dress, the necklace, had all combined to create someone new. Someone he almost didn't recognize. Almost. Because deep down, in some strange way, he did recognize this person. And that was what scared him the most. Michelle rested her chin on his shoulder, meeting his gaze in the mirror. You like it, don't you? She asked, her voice soft. Martin's fingers twitched at his sides. He wanted to say no. He should say no. But the word wouldn't come. Michelle grinned, clearly seeing the answer in his eyes. You don't have to be afraid, she said. It's just us. No one else has to know. Martin's breath came a little faster. But what if they do find out? Michelle shrugged. Then they find out. His stomach twisted. But that's not happening tonight, she continued. Tonight, It's just you and me. And Martha. The name sent a shiver through him. He turned to look at her. Martha. Michelle winked. You need a name, don't you? Something fitting for the beautiful girl I see in front of me. Martin's lips parted slightly. The name felt foreign, yet familiar. Like a memory he hadn't lived yet. Martha, he whispered. Michelle beamed. See? It suits you. He wasn't sure why, but hearing her say it, his name, made his chest feel warm. Martin looked back at himself in the mirror. No, not Martin. Martha. The thought should have scared him. But all he could do was smile. The name echoed in his mind. Martha. It felt strange, yet oddly comfortable, like slipping into a sweater that had always been too big but now fit just right. Michelle tapped her chin, studying him. You know, she said, I think Martha needs something else. Martin, no. Martha turned to look at her. Something else? Michelle nodded, a playful glint in her eyes. Hair. Makeup. The full experience. Martha's stomach flipped. It was one thing to wear the dress, to see herself, in the mirror like this. But to go even further? That was dangerous. That was pushing it. I don't know. Martha mumbled, shifting nervously. Michelle didn't miss a beat. Relax, she said, digging into her purse. It's not permanent. Just a little mascara, maybe some blush. She pulled out a small compact and flicked it open, revealing a soft pink powder. Martha stared at it, chewing her lip. She should say no. This was already going too far. But something deep inside whispered, why stop now? Michelle must have sensed the hesitation because she stepped closer, holding up the brush. Trust me, she said. You'll love it. Martha exhaled slowly, then nodded. Atta girl, Michelle said with a grin. The words sent a shiver down her spine. Michelle worked quickly, dusting the blush lightly over Martha's cheeks. There we go, she murmured. Just a little color. Martha swallowed, watching Michelle's face, so focused, so sure of what she was doing. Michelle pulled back, tilting her head. You know what? You have really pretty eyes. Martha blinked. I do. Yep. Michelle nodded, already pulling out a small tube of mascara. This will make them pop even more. Martha barely had time to react before Michelle was leaning in, her hand steady as she brushed the mascara wand against her lashes. Blink, Michelle instructed. Martha obeyed. Good, Michelle said. Now the other eye. A few swipes later, Michelle stepped back, nodding in satisfaction. All right, now look. Martha turned to the mirror. The girl staring back at her was someone new. The blush gave her face warmth. The mascara made her eyes look bigger, deeper. The soft pink on her lips caught the light just enough to make them shine. She looked real. Martha's fingers trembled as she reached up, touching her cheek. Michelle grinned. Told you you'd love it. Martha exhaled sharply, a nervous laugh bubbling out of her. I can't believe this. Believe it, Michelle said. Martha turned to her, eyes wide. But what if my parents come home? Michelle shrugged. Then we clean you up. No big deal. Martha's stomach twisted. But what if? Michelle rolled her eyes. Martha, breathe. It's just us. No one else will know. Martha wanted to believe that. But deep down, she knew something had changed. This wasn't just a game anymore. And there was no going back. The weight of the moment settled over Martha like a warm blanket. She turned her head slightly, watching the way the soft blush highlighted her cheeks, the way her eyelashes framed her widened eyes. It was breathtaking. For the first time, she saw herself, not a boy playing dress-up, not a secret waiting to be hidden again, but someone real. Someone alive. Her fingers brushed against the fabric of the dress, trailing down its soft folds. The sensation sent another shiver through her, one that had nothing to do with fear. Michelle sat back on the bed, crossing her legs, studying her like a proud artist admiring a finished masterpiece. You're thinking too much, she said. Martha blinked, tearing her gaze away from the mirror. What? Michelle smirked. I can see it. Your brain is working overtime, trying to make sense of all this. Martha swallowed. I mean, shouldn't I? Michelle shrugged. Why? You're here, you're happy, and you look amazing. Isn't that enough? Martha hesitated, her heart hammering against her ribs. Was it enough? Before she could answer, Michelle sat up, her grin widening. You know what we need? Martha gulped. What? A fashion show. Martha's eyes went wide. What? No. Come on. Michelle hopped off the bed, grabbing Martha's hands and pulling her toward the center of the room. You can't just sit there looking all pretty and not show it off. Martha shook her head. Michelle, Sure. Michelle put a finger to her lips. Listen, it's just us, right? No audience, no pressure. Just a little fun. You trust me, don't you? Martha hesitated. Did she trust Michelle? The answer came quicker than she expected. Yeah, she admitted. Michelle beamed. Great. Then let's do this. She turned and grabbed the hairbrush from Brenda's vanity, running it through Martha's short hair, fluffing it up in places to give it a little volume. Not perfect, she mused, but it'll do. Martha barely had time to register what was happening before Michelle spun her toward the mirror again. Okay, Michelle said, stepping back, hands on her hips. Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna walk from the door to the vanity, turn, pose, and walk back. Got it? Martha let out a nervous laugh. Michelle, I don't know how to. Exactly why we're doing this. Michelle cut in. Now, watch me first. She squared her shoulders, lifted her chin, and strutted across the room like she owned it. Every step was smooth, deliberate, confident. When she reached the vanity, she spun on her heel and struck a playful pose, one hand on her hip, the other tossed dramatically in the air. Martha giggled despite herself. Michelle turned and walked back, her smirk never fading. See? Easy. Martha shifted her weight, biting her lip. Your turn, Michelle prompted. Martha took a deep breath. She could do this. She wanted to do this. Slowly, she took a step forward. Then another. The dress swayed around her legs, the silky fabric brushing against her skin. She straightened her back, trying to mimic Michelle's posture, keeping her chin up even as her nerves made her stomach twist. When she reached the vanity, she hesitated. Michelle leaned in expectantly. Come on. Strike a pose. Martha swallowed, then, without thinking, lifted one hand to her hip and let the other drift slightly to the side, fingers curled delicately. Michelle let out an exaggerated gasp. Oh my God, Martha. That was adorable. Martha giggled, shaking her head. Shut up. No, seriously. Michelle clapped her hands. You're a natural. Martha turned back to the mirror, the smile still lingering on her lips. She couldn't deny it. She felt good. Better than good. She felt right. She walked back toward Michelle, her steps more fluid, more natural this time. Michelle nodded approvingly. See? You're getting the hang of it. Martha plopped down onto the bed beside her, exhaling sharply. That was weird. Michelle laughed. Weird good or weird bad? Martha hesitated. Weird, new. Michelle grinned. New is good. Martha chewed her lip, staring down at her hands. Her nails still gleamed with soft pink polish. Michelle nudged her. You okay? Martha took another deep breath. I don't know what this means. Michelle tilted her head. What do you want it to mean? Martha's stomach twisted. I don't know. Michelle gave her a knowing look. Yeah, you do. Martha didn't answer. Because Michelle was right. She did know. She just wasn't ready to say it yet. Martha lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind a swirling storm of thoughts she couldn't quite catch. The room felt different now, warmer, heavier, charged with an energy she wasn't used to. It wasn't just the dress or the nail polish or the soft shimmer of gloss still clinging to her lips. It was her. Michelle was right. She didn't know what this meant. But knowing something deep inside and saying it out loud were two completely different things. She swallowed hard and turned her head to glance at Michelle, who was now lazily flipping through Brenda's magazine, twirling a strand of her blonde hair between her fingers. Michelle? Martha hesitated, her words tangling in her throat. She wanted to ask, is this normal? Do other people feel this way? Am I weird? Am I wrong? But instead, what came out was, do you think I could? She stopped herself, heat creeping up her neck. Michelle raised an eyebrow. Could what? Martha swallowed again, harder this time. Do you think I could? Pass? Michelle closed the magazine and sat up, crossing her legs. Her expression softened, but there was a spark in her eyes, curious, interested. Pass, she repeated. Martha's pulse pounded. You know, she mumbled, suddenly very aware of how loud the room felt despite being so quiet. Like, if someone saw me like this, would they think I was a girl? The words felt so fragile, so vulnerable, like a glass teetering on the edge of a table. One wrong move, and it would shatter. Michelle didn't answer right away. She just studied her, eyes flicking over her face, her posture, the way she nervously curled her fingers in the folds of the dress. Then she smiled. You're a girl. Martha's breath hitched. Not you look like a girl. Not you could be a girl if you tried harder. Not it's just pretend. But, you're a girl. Michelle said it so easily, so casually, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Martha felt her whole body tense. It was like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down, realizing just how far she could fall. You don't have to freak out, Michelle said gently, noticing her expression. I'm just saying. Look at yourself. Really look. Martha turned to the mirror again, almost afraid of what she might see. The girl staring back at her, because it was a girl, wasn't it, had wide, searching eyes. Soft lips that still shined. A nervous hand resting against her chest. Martha. Not Martin. Martha. Her fingers twitched, as if her body had already accepted something her mind was still struggling with. Michelle smiled knowingly. See? Martha's heart thudded. But, how? She whispered. Michelle shrugged. Some people just are. You ever felt right in those boy clothes? Martha opened her mouth, then closed it. Because the truth was, no. She had always felt a little off, like an actor forced into the wrong role. She had spent years trying to be the person everyone saw her as, but here, now, in this moment, dressed as Martha, she wasn't trying at all. She just was. Michelle grinned. Told you. You're not playing dress up. You're just being you. The words settled into Martha's bones, warm and terrifying all at once. But what if? She hesitated, fingers tightening on the fabric of the dress. What if my parents find out? Michelle sighed, leaning back on her hands. That's a tough one, she admitted. Some parents get it. Some don't. Some freak out at first but come around later. And some? She trailed off, her smile faltering just slightly. Well, you know. Martha's stomach twisted. She did know. Her dad always joked about real men and how boys don't cry. He liked sports, cars, all the things Martha had never been interested in. Her mom was softer, gentler. Maybe she would understand. Maybe not. And Brenda. Brenda had always been kind to her. But would she be kind to this? I don't know if I can tell them, Martha admitted. Then don't. Michelle shrugged. Not yet. You don't have to figure everything out tonight, Martha. This is just for you right now. No one else. Martha bit her lip. But won't they find out eventually? Michelle tilted her head. Maybe, but that's later. Right now you have tonight. Martha let the words sink in. She had tonight. Just tonight. She could worry about everything else later. For now, she could just be. Martha exhaled, slowly, shakily. Then she smiled. Okay, she said softly. Michelle grinned. That's my girl. And for the first time, Martha didn't flinch at the words. Because maybe, just maybe, Michelle was right. Maybe she was a girl after all.
Please subscribe my channel for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.